Hello, I'm Paul Dougherty, and the source that I selected for this assignment is Chapter 4, Teacheth My Hands to War and My Fingers to Fight, David's Revolutionary Heroism, from James Byrd's book, Sacred Scripture, Sacred War, the Bible, and the American Revolution. Ministers in revolutionary America believed that all wars created heroes, but wars fought for God also created saints. There were warriors who could meet both martial demands as well as the spiritual standards of Scripture. In many colonial American war sermons, King David was the epitome of this ideal. He was a prophet, a king, a soldier, and most importantly, the man after God's own heart. For patriotic ministers who struggled to identify the religious value of military service, David was a subject they often returned to if they had difficulty making their case to a skeptical public. Many people thought it was contradictory to preach the gospel of Christ while also preaching aggression on the battlefield. Facing these obstacles, patriotic ministers often used the David and Goliath story, knowing that their biblical hero was so perfectly exemplifying both spirit of character and military might. David's story was extremely popular in colonial America. It's a story in which a poor shepherd boy, David, witnesses a gigantic Philistine soldier, Goliath, taunting the Israelite army, asking if they had any courage to meet him on the battlefield. The winner would have ended the war in their favor. Now, David stepped forward when no one else would and accepted the giant's challenge for a one-to-one combat to the death. David felt that Goliath had not only insulted Israel, but he had also insulted Israel's God. Of course, David meets Goliath in no man's land between the two armies, and David gets the better of Goliath by hitting him in the head with a stone thrown from his sling, and then proceeds to behead the giant in front of everybody, giving Israel the victory over the Philistines. In pre-revolutionary America, David's story was both an inspiration and a warning. It is inspiring because a young shepherd boy vanquishes a mighty giant, but it is also an indication that wartime victories are God's alone and that they are bestowed by providence and are outside the realm of human control. To engage in a conflict without God's blessing is to risk defeat on the battlefield. Colonial ministers realized that there was an issue with trusting in God's deliverance and relying on martial prowess. This is a dynamic that they used to their advantage. Therefore, they developed characteristics of a revolutionary soldier. He needed to be courageous but not arrogant, and he should be trusting in God and not in himself, because pride literally led to certain defeat, both spiritually and militarily. They believed that the army needed soldiers that could recognize God's providence and not their own human efforts that were the key to victory. Hence, they continued to use David as the ultimate hero. Other patriotic preachers joined in a chorus of dissent against British attack on American liberties. For example, the close connection in the minds of the colonists between political and religious rights explains the nature of the cleric's position. Ministers viewed the Stamp Act as the first plot against the colonists' spiritual as well as civil liberties. Additionally, the territory that the British gained in the French and Indian War helped to confirm that the clergy's belief in the British conspiracy against the colonial churches was an argument by permitting the worship of the Roman Catholic faith in the former French province. The English government was laying the groundwork for the ultimate destruction of Protestantism. There have not been many wars where religious organizations and their representatives appeared to transcend the perspectives of wartime dualism, such as friend versus foe, the righteous versus the unrighteous cause, and so forth. Involvement in the War of Independence on the part of religious institutions and their members seems to have been largely unproblematic, essentially predictable, and without major surprises. In a short essay on civil government, a Connecticut minister, Dan Foster, offered the incendiary argument that England was never more happy before, nor much more since, than after the head of the first Stuart was severed from his body, and while it was under the protectionship of Oliver Cromwell. Now, this concludes my presentation, and I look forward to viewing all of yours. Thank you.